All right. So today I'm going to talk about the Ayurvedic wheel. So really going back to the basics of what Ayurveda is. And I'm super excited. I had a really great experience with this woman who decided to bring me on I can only call it like a podcast event. And it was so much fun because it was like interviewing and kind of back and forth, which I don't get a lot of. So it was really inspiring and it got me super excited. And obviously, because I'm like flying right now. So hopefully you can keep up because I'm just buzzing today. But we're going to go through the Ayurvedic wheel. So go ahead and write down this wheel, make the circle, the X to the center, the line through the center of it. 2 p.m., 6 p.m., 10, midnight, 2 a.m. Boy, that hasn't been corrected yet. Okay, so 2 a.m., 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and noon. So get the clock on there. And then go ahead and write when you get up in the morning. So if it's a little different on the weekends or weekdays and weekends, go ahead and mark that down. So make 2 separate marks and kind of take notes. Put down what time you go to bed at night. And if it varies a little bit from work week to non-work week, go ahead and make the difference on that. What time you eat breakfast, if you eat breakfast. What time you eat your noon meal. What time you eat your evening meal. If you snack. What time you have your bowel movement. If you wake up at night, usually it's about the same time for most people. What time you exercise. And exercising can be anything from a walk to a workout class or anything like that. So if you go for a daily walk, go ahead and put that down. If it's fairly inconsistent, that's okay. Just mark down something. So making the Ayurvedic wheel, X to the center, crossed numbers, and then putting basic events. All right, so we will get started with this. So I love Ayurveda. I love everything about it. I get more and more excited every time I study. Today I was prepping quite a bit for my my lecture that was before this one. This one I've given, I don't know, a couple 25, 50 times. I don't know how much I've given this one already, but I'm sipping on my beet something drink. It's really good. I really enjoy it, actually. Except for it makes my hand really, really red. Downfall. Okay, so we're going to go to the clock. Starting the night before, so 6 p.m. at night should be about when your last meal is at. So you want to eat at about 6, I'd say no later than 7 o'clock. Then we go into the PM, and the nighttime is a time to start winding down, not getting amped up again. So we don't want our workouts to happen at this time of night. We want workouts to happen usually right away in the morning. I'm probably going to sling a little bit of the Ayurvedic lingo today, just because it is appropriate, and you guys are starting to learn, and you'll pick up on different things every time you hear these lectures because I don't do them exactly the same. Then we go into the evening. What time do you go to bed? And it should be no later than 10:30, but 10 o'clock is ideal or earlier. Going into the evening, you shouldn't wake up at all. The idea is to be able to sleep through the night so your body can detoxify at a cellular level and along with your brain. In the morning, up around 6 a.m. So 6 a.m. or earlier. I'm starting to work my schedule back a little bit. So I had mine to about 6:30 pretty consistently during the winter time, just because it's okay to hibernate a little bit more in the winter, especially those of us that live in the northern climates. But we want to start working that back to about that 5:30 time as the summer starts to progress, or spring goes into summer and we have more daylight. Because our day has definitely gotten a lot earlier, even with daylight savings time. So that's pretty amazing. And then we go into the morning. We should have our breakfast before 9 a.m. Noon meal should be as close to noon as possible. And it can be between 12 and 1. I'm a 12:30 because I usually start cooking around noon. And then 12:30 is when I eat. 12:30. Sometimes it's a little bit later, but not much. I eat my breakfast though pretty much right at 9 o'clock because I usually have classes either before or after. And then we don't want to be snacking in the afternoon. A lot of times snacking happens in the afternoon because we don't eat a big enough meal in the morning. All right, a big enough meal at noon. And now I'm going to go through and really break these down. So now that you have kind of an idea where you're at and then an idea of what should be happening, just because of different chemical things that happen, hormonal things that happen, our brain releases certain elements to be able to balance our body out. We'll go through what that means. So starting the night before, your day actually starts the night before. So if you don't get to bed till midnight, it's going to affect your next day, which can play a part in days to follow. So working on bringing you're dialing back your sleep time. And for those of you that are night owls, which Ayurveda does not promote nor support, we love you just the same, but science proves that we sleep at night, we're not nocturnal. So we want to make sure that we're getting that sleep as close to 10 o'clock, if not earlier. And I understand, like, as far as being a parent and stuff like that, that it's the only time you get that's to yourself. But really the best thing you can do for yourself is getting good sleep and getting that sleep at the appropriate time too. So in Ayurveda, we talk about the different times of day and night. So this is the Pitta time and this is the Pitta time. And Pitta translates as that which digests things, Pitta, that which digests things. And then we have in the afternoon, we have the Vata time. And then in the early morning, we have the Vata time. And Vata is defined as that which moves things. Then we have the Kapha time, Kapha, Kapha. And the Kapha time is in the early morning and in the later evening. And Kapha is that which holds things together. So when we're talking about these things, the elements are the qualities, the doshas, we call them, play a part in this clock and why we should be doing certain things at certain times. So when we are talking about the time of day to be able to optimize our body with nature's rhythms, that means that our body will slowly start to recalibrate and really set in. And when we can set into this circadian clock, so circadian science is this brand new science in Western medicine. It's going to be a big thing in the next few years. And Ayurveda has been talking about it for about 5,000 years. So we kind of got this one. And we're just so happy that we're getting support around it because it really is life-changing to be able to dial in. So these elements play a part and we want to use them to the best ability. The only time we go against the elements or against the doshas is in the morning. And the reason why we do is because the qualities of kapha are heavy and dense and slow. So if your constitution is actually kapha, so if you have a bigger body frame, meaning if your bone structure probably weighs more than me, you're a kapha body. Like they're just bigger, thicker bodies, have struggled with weight their whole life. That's a kapha constitution. And in the morning here is when they tend to be super lethargic. They're slower to get up in the morning. They need a little more motivation. They'd rather sleep in till about 10 o'clock because then they feel a little bit better. But they actually should be getting up quite a bit earlier, like but well before 6. Some of my kapha clients, I try to get them up at 5 o'clock. And that's earlier than I have to be up. But I don't have any problems in the morning. Morning is like rock star time for me. So different constitutions are going to be different, but I still work against this time of the day. So that's when I do my exercising. Most of my workouts or my harder workouts are going to be during that time. It's also when I eat my breakfast. So I eat my breakfast at about 9 o'clock and that's pretty consistent. And then we go into the Vata time. So the Vata times, the qualities are air and ether. Air and ether means there's nothing to it. There's no mass to it, right? So these times of the day, we don't want to be digesting food. We don't want to be awake. We want to be resting and sleep so our body can really detoxify. So in the evening, we have more of the, or in the morning, I should say, this is the morning time. In the morning time, we'll have more of those air qualities. So moving toxins out of our body, the energy of moving out and down. So upon a vayu, downward movement of energy. And then we have the daytime part, and we don't want to be doing anything extra, but this is the time of day where if we eat enough at noon and we eat enough at breakfast time, that we are actually the most creative. So some businesses will have their noon meetings, right? It is the worst time to have a meeting because people are hungry. It's during the pitta time, so you're going to be more confrontational. Pitta's fire, fire. So anytime you talk about fire, it's never like a warm, fuzzy thing, right? Like it's like you get your hand in fire, like it's hot, you're going to burn yourself. Worst time to have meetings is at noon because you're probably going to get burnt, or somebody's going to get burnt by the pittas, especially in the group that haven't eaten lunch. And they really should be eating that noon meal. In the afternoon, if you get proper nutrition at noon, you will feel stable and you will feel very creative in the afternoon. Best time to have meetings, or in the morning. This is when we tend to structurally have more ability to be able to sustain. All right, so going in a little bit deeper now, we want to eat our largest meal in the middle of the day because our digestion is the highest. Pitta represents fire. We want that fire element to be working for us, and we don't want to be working against it at all. So if we exercise in the middle of the day, we're actually causing more issues with our digestive system than we're helping. Now, exercise, I can be a little bit loose with this. So when I say exercise, I mean a hard run, a big time workout, a big sweaty workout. We do not want to be doing from that 11 o'clock to about that 2 o'clock time. We actually want to be doing things that are more cooling for our body and eating food and letting our body really digest food at that time. In the evening time, so between 10 and 2 a.m. is also the pitta time. And this is when our body is doing the more of the rest and digest. Sure, we're digesting a little bit of food, but we're doing more of digestion of our day. So we're breaking down the stress of our day. We're breaking down the emotions. So any stimulus that we took in through any of our senses gets processed during the nighttime, and most intently right here. And this is when our body detoxifies at a cellular level. So it actually breaks down all of the toxins in our body. Our body goes into fat burning mode, hopefully to be able to get toxins out so that they don't settle into our brain. Our brain shrinks just a tiny bit, and synovial fluid flushes through our brain to be able to, our lymphatics, our synovial fluid flushes through our brain to be able to flush it out and to get the toxins out of our brain, which is really important, especially if we want cognitive function for the next day and we don't want to develop any sort of mind illnesses. So we want this detoxification process to happen to be able to clear our mind. I mean, that's as simple as you can put it. It doesn't happen during any other time because when we're awake, our mind is taking in senses, whether we're watching TV or we're reading a book, we're taking in a lot of information. So we want to make sure that we're giving it a time to have a break, along with our body heals at this time. And it's the only time our body heals because when we're standing or we're sitting is actually the worst thing we can do on our spine. Hands down, the worst thing we can do on it. Well, other than like car accident or something like that. But as far as our normal daily functions, sitting is extremely hard on our body. And we don't look at it that way. We think, oh, we're just resting our back. It's actually causing more problems for your back and your spine. That's why we want to make sure that we're doing some sort of movement throughout the day, whether you break it up. So if you figure you want to do a half an hour of a workout during the day or half an hour of walking during the day, you can do like 20 minutes and then do 10 minutes in the evening, or you can do 10 minutes after 10 minutes in the morning, and then 10 minutes after your lunch, and then 10 minutes after your evening supper, and break it up a little bit. Like there's always ways to do it. And the weather's getting nicer, right? Like we're going from today's the coldest day at like 30 degrees. And by the weekend, we're going to be at 70 something. Like that's absolutely insane. I'm a little excited about the weather too. I'm a winter girl, but I'm done. Today was like, I'm done. I'm done with the wind, especially, but the wind is going to come no matter what. But we want to make sure that we're doing things to be able to work with the rhythms of nature, because that will really help us be able to balance out and to have stable emotions and stable digestive system, and for our brain to function properly. Because I mean, it's inevitable that as we age, things are just going to get a little bit harder to do, whether our physical body can't handle as much stress and tension or as much physical work, or our mind can't handle as much can't pull up information and stuff as well. I've experienced, my great grandmother lived to be 105, and her cognitive function was off the charts. I have never met anybody who at that late of age had such a sharp mind. And I'm sure some of us maybe know grandparents that were that way. And my grandmother or great grandmother did a really good job of self-care. I mean, she had a tough life. She moved from Holland to Minnesota, and she did not have an easy life. She was like 14 when she moved here, like so young, and, had a life and had a hard life, but she still took care of herself. Like the things that when I knew her and when I remember her, I always remember her doing things very systematically. Like everything was very much a system. And, it could be a little bit of that Dutch nature and that Dutch blood, but at the same time, she was really a pretty fascinating woman. And my dad once in a while says to me, he goes, "Oh, your great grandmother used to do that." And I'm like, well, that's weird because I didn't even know she did things like that. So it's super inspiring. But that age group, and probably the 70-year-olds, and if you were a farm kid, you probably grew up a little bit different than the city people did. And so we tend to be a little more connected with the clock, although some of us move out of those areas and kind of fall victim to the other part of that. But we really want to make sure we're dialing in. So think about this, the simplicity of this. I know some of the things are hard. I had to do the hardest one for me was evening meal. Everything else I had pretty close. Breakfast was never a problem. Noon meal was never a problem. It was the evening meal. And I grew up eating very, very late, but it was also a smaller meal at night, especially weekly type meals. Once in a while, if we go out as a family, then it tends to be a little bit bigger meal. But I usually choose now to have a smaller one, unless I really want a hamburger, then I do that, but not all the time. But I had to calibrate things way, way, way back. But it changed a lot of things. And when I started doing that, I slept so much deeper and I wouldn't wake up at night and my body was digesting better. And my bowel movements were happening every single morning within an hour after I wake up. And it's pretty amazing when you start doing those things. When you look at illnesses and you consider all the illnesses in the world and how many can probably be stabilized or fixed with just dialing into nature's rhythms and really paying attention versus just doing your own thing because you think it's right. Well, nature has its laws over us, and the clock is a pretty big deal. That's why daylight savings time is a really big deal. We don't really need it anymore. And it's something that's throwing our systems off. We're going into a cultural jet lag, which throws things off a little bit. And I know it took me a week or so, and I'm like, man, I just was getting things dialed in, and now I've got to work on the clock again. But one of the downfalls of it, right? So when we're working on these things, take little bits at a time, and I would highly suggest really solidifying the evening part of it. So make that the biggest changes you make, cutting out the TV time and really getting that evening meal pushed back. If you're going to skip any meal, skip the evening meal. If you're trying to lose weight or trying to change your digestive system, dial in those eating times. You're eating at about 8 or 9 o'clock, you're eating at about noon, and then either eating really early or fasting. So going for that big fast through the day. And I do that a couple times a week. Well, usually once a week for sure, where I fast from noon one-ish all the way till the next day at 9 o'clock. And it sounds like it'd be really difficult, but it's really a mindset. A lot of these things are a mindset. If you want to do it bad enough, you'll make the changes for it, and you'll adapt. And there's so many little things you can do before you even would have like a consultation with me or go into one of my programs. Like there's lots of little things you can do to dial in, because I'm still going to go back to this. There's no miracle that you're going to learn from that stuff until you have this stuff, because you have to build the foundations of your practice. And doing that movement in the morning is going to help give you energy throughout the day, and doing it consistently versus doing it 3 times a week. Westerners are big on I'm going to get to the gym 3 times a week. Is it happening? I mean, it's wishful thinking, but going to the gym, working out for 1 or 2 hours, like, is that the best use of time versus getting in 30 minutes in the morning, every single morning at a consistent level, or 20 minutes or 10 minutes every single day? That's what's going to make the difference. It's the consistency. It's the little things over a period of time that make the biggest difference. It's not the big things. The big things can fall off much easier than the little things, because we build habits by building consistency. And if we can build consistency in the basic things, waking up, going to bed, eating times, and then exercise times. And if we can keep those consistent, a lot of things will change. I have a couple friends that used to work in pharmaceuticals, and they would joke a lot about the drugs that they're selling. And they'd say, well, I'm selling these drugs, but I know an apple a day and a little bit of exercise, most of these people would be completely fine. Like it's that simple. After you dial into this, then you can start to look at, like, what do you really need for nutrition? What nutritional needs need to change? Do I need to do a detox? Do I need to do other things to be able to balance my life out? And that's when things get a little more specific as according to Constitution. But when it comes to the basics are the basics. Like there's no difference between the three constitutions. There's no questions asked. It's just what it is. And it does take time, and I do understand. All right. So I think if there's anything else I want to cover with this. Yeah, I think that's it. So I want to keep things really basic today. There's a whole bunch of lectures coming up over the next month. I think I'm skipping my birthday on the 21st because, well, it's my birthday and I can do whatever I want to on my birthday. But we'll have Wellness Wednesdays over the next few weeks. I think next week is sleep, if I remember correctly. And then we go back into a one on nutrition, and we just kind of break down each part of this. If you want to check out any of my other sources, you can check out my website, whenshifthappens.org. My email's on there. My Instagram is on there. My Instagram is different than a lot of people's. I don't, as far as a practitioner goes, I don't niche it. I do my life. So I talk about my life and what I do. You can see my paintings on Instagram and on Facebook. I've been painting a lot more lately. And they're very unique paintings, and they're very colorful. So if you haven't experienced them, they're on there right now. And I also post about my chickens and all of that kind of stuff in parts of my life, because I believe that Ayurveda has taught me, this practice of Ayurveda has taught me that everything in our life plays a part in our happiness and our joy. And we can work and work and work and work. And then when we die, do we regret our life? Do we regret things in our life? And I look back in my life, and even the mistakes I made, I don't regret any of it. I really have made my peace. And I look at the things that could be the possibilities for the future, and I get super excited about the possibilities that are opening up and the changes that are happening, and some of my new projects, my painting projects that are really evolving, and I'm super excited about it. And we have to look at our life, that we want to be able to find balance, right? And there's no such thing as work-life balance. So for those of us that are still in the working world, it doesn't exist. You're not going to have this pie chart that's 50-50. It doesn't work like that. We work a lot and we sleep a lot. So what you do is you make as much quality self-time as possible. And if you can do all this stuff and get it dialed in, you really end up saving time in the long run. So we look at these things as like, oh, it's just one more thing to do. Actually, it's one more thing that's going to set you up for a better day. I know if I skip certain things in my morning practice, my meditation or laying on the chi machine or whatever that may be, that I am just not the same person as when I go to bed at a certain time or when I get up at a certain time. So it is important, and the little changes you make are going to make a huge difference. It does take time, and be patient and be kind with yourself, because it'll all evolve as it's supposed to. But just sitting there doing nothing is not going to get you anywhere either if you're trying to make some changes in your life. All right. Have a good evening.